A lot of us remember that first thing that scared us, and I'm talking about the first time that something really stuck with you. For a lot of kids growing up in the late 90s and those like myself growing up in the 2000s, that moment came wrapped in a deceptively familiar package: Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island was marketed as the next spooky adventure for Mystery Inc. The same mystery-solving formula we were familiar with a few red herrings, some meddling kids, and a goofy unmasking at the end. Instead, what we got was something different, darker, moodier, and genuinely upsetting to younger audiences. This wasn't the cartoon that I was familiar with, but it wouldn't stop me watching it repeatedly. The animation was lush and came with this rich cinematic feel that emanates a warmth whenever I revisit it. The Louisiana bayou felt heavy and humid, and suddenly the ghosts were real. For the first time, the man behind the mask was merely a hope rather than a foregone conclusion. Even today, the film carries an energy that feels a little out of place for what it is, that being a direct-to-video Scooby-Doo movie. It's gothic, haunted by the past, and steeped in this strange blend of melancholy and nostalgia. It respected the audience enough to scare them, and for many, that was new. Zombie Island became kind of a gateway horror, an introduction to fear that invited kids to explore it safely. I did talk about this film briefly in a video back in March, but to retread slightly, this is absolutely one of the primary reasons that I am the horror fan I've become. Looking back on it, it's a coming-of-age moment disguised as a great Scooby-Doo movie. It took the familiar warmth of our childhood mystery gang and turned it up a notch. So let's talk about it. By the time the film releases in 1998, Scooby-Doo as a franchise was one that had gone through decades of unexpected repetition. Mystery Inc. had unmasked hundreds of greedy real estate developers, carnival owners, and janitors who were just a little too disgruntled with their employment. The formula was really predictable, but despite the stagnant concept, it wasn't something that was a complete shock given the basic concept of the show. Despite that, even the most dedicated fans probably would have admitted the mystery machine was running on fumes. The gang's dynamic, once full of fun and whimsy, had settled in on autopilot. So when we eventually get to Zombie Island, it becomes a resurrection of the franchise. Hanna-Barbera knew Scooby-Doo couldn't coast on nostalgia forever. Audiences had grown up, and the studio itself was being absorbed into the larger machinery at Warner Brothers. There was this unspoken pressure to make Scooby-Doo relevant again, a feeling that the next entry to the franchise may have been make or break. This is where we meet the creative team led by Davis Doy and Jim Strenstrom, with a script from Glenn Leopold whose credits contained projects like The Real Ghostbusters. They took to reimagining the gang as older, slightly disillusioned and separated by the weight of their routine. After a cold open that follows the traditional formula, the film catches up with the reminiscing about the old days and a self-aware nod to the franchise's old fatigue. The decision to set the story in Louisiana provides this inspired change. The bayou's thick atmosphere gave the film a texture that the series had never really seen before. More importantly, this thing comes with a dynamic of monsters that are real. It's something that the franchise has previously dabbled with, but this goes all in. The film dares to disrupt Scooby-Doo's own mythology to regain meaning. By giving us real danger, it restored the stakes. It was a bold move for this franchise, but my god did it work. Before we go any further, I was doing some digging on my analytics, and as of recording this, only 2.2% of you watching this are subscribed. I'd like to see if I can get that up to a reasonable 3.5% by the end of the year, but the only person who can help me change that is you. So if you enjoy the content I'm making here and you want more along those lines, then like the video and hit that subscribe button. YouTube can also be pretty shit when it comes to recommending new channels, so also hit the bell so you don't miss out when I drop new stuff. We'd be happy to welcome you, but with that out of the way, let's get back to things. For an entire generation, this movie is a revelation. It's a horror movie in disguise, one that uses the comfort of something familiar to get us comfortable before getting dark. You thought you were sitting down for a cookie-cutter Scooby-Doo adventure, and suddenly you have zombies crawling out of swamps and spectral pirates rising from their graves. That's one hell of a tonal shift. I think one of the biggest things that makes this film special is the way that it treats fear seriously. There's a deep sincerity to the content in Zombie Island that makes it a lot more meaningful in the scene-by-scene breakdown. In the moment where Fred rips the head from a zombie's body and the reality of their situation settles in, it doesn't turn to comedy, and that does a lot. It's exactly why Zombie Island is such a great gateway horror film. It doesn't want to traumatize kids, but it respects the ability for them to handle fear. Films like this opened the door for many of us, leading to bigger scares down the line. I'm one of them, and I'm sure as hell that I'm not the only one. Rewatching it now, the tone feels daring. The colour palette leans into decay with muted greens, dying oranges, and perpetual twilight. The soundtrack is swampy and mournful, grounding the film with this strange, southern gothic mood. The animation itself, with the sharper lines and the moody shading, gives it a tactile sense of unease that was missing on the show. It's atmospheric in a way that suggested something had changed, and that, to many kids growing up alongside Scooby-Doo, was perhaps a little unsettling as well. Looking back, Zombie Island was monumental in shaping my love for horror. It showed me from an early age that fear could have texture and atmosphere, but could also coexist with the characters that I loved. That's the magic of gateway horror. It opens the door gently, it shows you what's in there, but the second you enter, it doesn't hold your hand. Watching it as an adult feels like opening a time capsule. Like, the movie hasn't changed, but I have. What scared me once now feels oddly tender, melancholic maybe. You start to see the subtext that slipped by as a kid. Zombie Island is a film about the gang and the franchise rediscovering its purpose. When the film opens, the crew is fractured. Fred is the one-man team on Daphne's reality TV show, Velma's running a bookshop, and Shaggy and Scooby temporarily work in an airport until the inevitable happens. They've all moved on, but none of them are truly satisfied with what they have. That's the emotional core, nostalgia meeting reality. The good old days that they miss aren't as simple as they remember, and the world they return to seems to be darker than the one they left behind. In a strange way, that mirrors our relationship with the film. As kids, we want to solve the mystery, and as adults, we want to understand it. Watching it now, you can feel that tension between what's comforting and what's gone. The Bayou setting only amplifies that. It's a place haunted by history, by things that refuse to stay buried, and that's exactly what the film itself became. A haunting memory that never quite let go. There's also maturity in how the film handles that idea. The villains, who were once cartoonishly greedy, are now tragic. They're immortal creatures cursed by their own choices. Even the zombies start off scary, but are revealed to actually be victims by the end. That's a surprisingly adult moral for a kids' film. It's not unusual, but to see it done in such black and white means is definitely not the way it would typically be done. I think the theme almost hits harder the older you get. Zombie Island plays like a deep conversation between who we were and who we've become. It's an echo of childhood optimism meeting adult disillusionment and that strange reconciliation that occurs between the two. And that's why it remains. Not because it scares us, but because it grew up alongside us. For all of the supernatural chaos present in Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, it endures because of the simple fact that it has stayed with us. It's the kind of scare you're hit with when you're young, that really makes you think about what fear was. It's the realization that fear can coexist with comfort, and that maybe that tension was what made the stories powerful in the first place. Every generation has its gateway horror. For some it was Goosebumps, for others maybe it was Coraline or Monster House. But Zombie Island stands apart because it filtered through something familiar to feel safe. It never apologised or backed down from the darker approach, and the confidence it shows in that creates a timeless feature. I continue to come back to it, and I think it's because I find comfort in how it trusts us. It believes that kids can handle a mystery as well as the fear that comes with this new territory, and in doing so, planted something long-lasting in the imagination of everyone who watched it. For me, and a lot of people who love horror today, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island wasn't just a childhood favourite, it was an awakening. Proof that fear could be fun, fascinating, and even formative. The mystery might have long since ended, and this film may have received an attempted bastardization in the form of a sequel more recently, but the feeling this specific entry emits has never, ever faded.